Welcome back. Now, incidents of hostility were evident among those tasked with the country's law enforcement during the South African Human Rights Commission's hearings into the July uprisings last week. The Human Rights Commission intends to find out what exactly happened during the 8 days of disturbing events that gripped parts of KwaZulu Natal and Gauteng. And among those who gave testimony are former Defense Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, Police Minister Beki Cele, National Police Commissioner Khehla Sitole and KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. A researcher in policing and public security, David Bruce, was a member of the panel of experts appointed by Minister Cele from 2016 to 2018 on the recommendations of the Marikana Commission of Inquiry, and he joins us now virtually to help us look into what came out of last week's Human Rights Commission's hearings. And, of course, looting incidents into that probe continues. But let's catch up with David Bruce now to get his views. David, good to see you. Good morning. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning.
So perhaps just as a starting point for those who may not have been following these proceedings, what exactly is the purpose of these hearings and what is the South African Human Rights Commission trying to achieve?
Well, I think a key starting point for the Human Rights Commission's inquiry is the fact that well over 300 people were killed in a wide range of different incidents, but also notable amongst those incidents were incidents of alleged racial violence and what's come to be known as the Phoenix Massacre. And so I think, one part of the issue that is being foregrounded by the South African Human Rights Commission is a specific inquiry into what happened in Phoenix. But the broader episode of violence, the origins of the violence, the role of the security forces are all issues that the Human Rights Commission is looking into, as well as kind of questions to do with underlying causes.
So if we look at the developments last week as an example, or the week before, what's your take on these hearings thus far? The tone, the demeanor of those giving testimony. And for example, we also saw Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula's testimony where she responded that she was not on trial. And we saw the commissioners of the Human Rights Commission really going hard. But what's your overall take on the tone and demeanor?
Well, the basic impression that a lot of people have formed, I think, is that there are clearly serious problems of the relationships between the senior officials in the security agencies. So people have seen what amounts to types of attacks of one kind or another from various officials within the security cluster against each other. And it suggests that there's, serious problems relating to the relationships between these people, serious problems in terms of the relationships of trust between senior officials within the police, senior ministers, and so on.
And of course, that breakdown in trust was also laid bare, as you point out. We saw, for example, that trust deficit between senior ranking officials in the police and Minister Cele, then Minister Cele and Police Commissioner Khehla Sitole. And this despite, one could say, them trying to play it down. But the inquiry learned this week that last week that Cele received no intelligence reports from Sitole, and this led to government having to rely only on social media posts with regard to the developing unrest. Could that have contributed in how rampant the looting and unconstrained lawlessness that gripped the country during that time actually played out, David?
Well, the one issue which was highlighted in a presentation which I did to the hearings, which was presented on behalf of the Institute for Security Studies was just this, that it appears that people within or close to the governing party played a central role in fomenting the unrest. And so what this implies is that the security agencies, well, particularly the intelligence services, if they were to have preempted the unrest, would have had to be subjecting people potentially within the ruling party to scrutiny. And so, one of the major concerns about the intelligence agencies over the last 15 to 20 years in South Africa has been about their politicization and has been about their use in internal disputes and power struggles within the African National Congress. And so, this is potentially one situation where it seems it would have been legitimate for, for the intelligence agencies to be subjecting members of the ANC to some type of intelligence scrutiny. But the broader problem, and a lot of people have been focusing on, this concerns about the intelligence agencies. But a point that emerges from this is that we should also be asking serious questions about the ANC. If there's basically an attack on government, on the state, on the overall system of the rule of law emerging from within the governing party in this country, then that itself is a very, very serious issue of concern. And so one would hope that this is also an issue that will be tackled quite, purposefully by the Human Rights Commission in reporting on these hearings, because a situation where threats to the security of the state are emerging from within the governing party are, obviously of serious concern. But the one thing is that they inevitably create the situation of politicization of the security services, where they suspected of or are being accused of being politicized and of being used as a political instrument. And so if we are going to get beyond the situation, then we need to address the problems emerging from within our own governing party right at the moment.
So David, I'm not sure how closely you've been following this. I've been managing to, catch it here and there in between work and other things. But there was a point during the testimony of the Police Commissioner Khehla Sitole where he was asked about the 12 instigators and where that information came from, how far they had gone with regard to the arrest and processing of that particular matter. And it was quite interesting that from his response, as you speak about the politicization of this thing, that it seemed as though that information did not come from the police or police intelligence.
Right, yes. Well, of course, the intelligence structure involves the State Security Agency and police intelligence. So conceivably, it could have emerged from, one or the other or from another source. But, at this point, where are we? We're roughly 5 months after the unrest. There's no clear indication as yet that anyone who was involved in a central way in kind of organizing or orchestrating this unrest is going to be held accountable. And so, and so there's a profound question as to what the obstacles are at this point in identifying the people who orchestrated this thing. And so, which obviously raises a question again about, is this about political influence over the security agencies? Is this about partisanship within the security agencies and so on? And and so, I think, many people, even people who are taking quite a close interest in what is going on, for instance, at the hearings, and have taken a close interest in the broader issue, have a sense that we continue to be in the dark as to whether any real progress is being made as in bringing, the kind of core orchestrators of this unrest to book.
David, also the revelations of a breakdown between Mapisa-Nqakula and the KZN police head, Mkhwanazi, during the hearings. And that obviously points to the fact that they struggled to work together. For example, when Mapisa-Nqakula was there, spoke about how they did not know where to deploy the members of the SANDF. But then we heard from Mkhwanazi when he came, basically saying that Mapisa-Nqakula and her generals were set up in a 5-star hotel and did not come to the ground to where things needed to happen. So how detrimental is this type of breakdown given the task that they had before them?
Right, yes. Well, the dispute that's taking, that specific aspect of the argument seems to be a bit of a red herring anyway, because it seems that Mapisa-Nqakula is talking about a period basically after the unrest. It seems that she arrived in KwaZulu Natal on or about the 15th of July, which is basically the day on which it's generally agreed on which the unrest came to an end. So, it's one of these squabbles or disputes that seems to be going on between senior officials and politicians. It seems, at the same time, it's effectively a bit of a distraction, because it isn't essentially about the core period when, the unrest was at its height, and, where the key questions about how and when the security agencies were being deployed need to be clarified.
And David, if we look at this, if all went according to the script, if all went well, everyone did what they were supposed to do when they were supposed to do it, and there was perfect cooperation among the country's law enforcement agencies, how was this supposed to have been handled?
Well, you see, I think what we need to, start off by recognizing is that ordinarily, a country like South Africa, which is a middle-income country, can't maintain police public order capability that is equipped and to deal with a generalized insurrection against, state security, the authority of the state, and a group of people who trying to sow generalized instability. So it would have been appropriate that the military should have been brought into the situation. The principle that's supposed to apply when, the military is involved in a domestic role of this kind is supposed to be that the police are, that they operate under the authority of the police. And so what one would ideally have had is that the police would have had an effective system of command over the, and would have had, good quality information about the unfolding situation, and had an effective system in place for deploying the components of the various, security agencies, and that the military would have been operating under their authority. That would have been part of it, at least.
Well, David, we have to leave it there, unfortunately. But thank you so much for your time this morning and analysis of this particular situation. That was researcher in the policing and public security, David Bruce, looking at what has come out of the South African Human Rights Commission hearings last week. And that, of course, continues. So we'll obviously keep you up to speed as it unfolds.